There, I brought my camera up as well. You should see me. If you can take off your mutes here, we'll test you.
There we go.
There
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
All right.
I see you went downstairs. That's good.
I am downstairs. I got much better reception here. I'm closer to my server. So, hey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
As we go through this, you're going to introduce me in the beginning here, and I'm just going to welcome everybody, that sort of thing. And then I have a 10:30. I'm not supposed to stay for the whole thing, right?
No, not at all. You can stay. You're welcome to stay as long as you like, but you're just going to be participating in just the welcome. So if you need to leave right after that, that's fine. If you want to hang around and watch a little bit, that's fine too. Can you just say anything on the screen? Do you see the presentation, the opening slide, the welcome slides?
See the what?
What do you see on your screen? Do you see our graphic that says the get licensed to build? So you see the graphic there?
Okay. Yeah, get licensed to build online. Yeah.
That's us. Okay, terrific. You're in the right place. Okay, we're going to start. We got about 12 minutes or so. Hey, and just so you know, too, is we've had, I think, around 360 people sign up so far. So we're hoping we've got a good crowd. We got 21 who are online with us that can hear you right now. So hopefully the crowd's going to be growing. Last time we had a little over 200. So.
Oh, wow. Very nice.
Terrific. Okay. All right. Well, we can stand by. You can turn off your camera if you want, then turn it on as we get closer to the top of the hour and go ahead and mute yourself, and then we'll be ready to start at 10.
All right.
Thanks.
Will do. Thanks.
For those of you who are online with us, again, we're starting in about 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and let you know we'll go over this at the top of the presentation as well. But there is a way for you to be able to ask questions today. So you'll see on WebEx, there is, if you kind of mouse over the main screen, you'll see a bunch of circles pop up at the bottom of the of your screen. And one of them is for questions and answers. Actually, I don't see it there, but anyway, it's I know it's here. But anyway, you're going to be able to fire off questions and answers. You should have the ability to do that. I'll double check and make sure I haven't turned something off. But that's how we're going to be taking questions. Now, as I mentioned, if you heard me talking a couple minutes ago, we're expecting over 300 people on here. So we'll do our very best to answer as many questions as we can. But depending on how many questions people have may limit us on how many we're going to get through. Last time we got through, I think, 170 or 180 of them. But we'll do our best. So as you're asking questions, please try to keep them as general in nature as you can. That might benefit the most people. And some of the things, especially if the questions have to do with experience and education, if you can hold off asking those questions until we get through that part of the demonstration and the presentation, because we may very well answer your questions during that, but that tends to be where we get most of our questions. So if they have to do with education, experience, and how you demonstrate that to us, try to hold off at least until we get to that part of the presentation. Oh, thank you, Cody. I see that the Q&A is working. Great. So that's good. Everything is up and running. And again, we'll be starting in just about 10 minutes. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the different parts of the license application and to give you practical tips to help you complete it correctly, and to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California contractor's license. We'll also get you ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a brand new video that we produced on what to expect on the test day. Today's webcast is presented by the California Contractor State License Board. We're the state government agency responsible for regulating California's construction industry. I am Rick Lopes, joined today by Anna Rodriguez. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Rick.
We're also joined at the beginning of our workshop by Johnny Simpson. Mr. Simpson is just finishing up his one-year term as chair of the Contractor State License Board. In case you didn't know it, CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including one labor representative, one local building official, and one representative from a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature. Mr. Simpson has been on our board since 2015. His daytime job is as the international representative of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, or IBEW's 9th District, which includes California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Hawaii, and northern portions of Idaho. Mr. Simpson is a third-generation IBEW wireman and graduated from IBEW's California Apprenticeship Program in 1981, or Johnny, I should probably say 1981. But, Mr. Simpson has been in the construction industry for more than 40 years, and he's extremely valuable to us on the board, and his experience in the industry is pretty close to unparalleled. So Mr. Simpson wanted to join us today and welcome all of you to the workshop. So I'll turn it over now to Johnny Simpson.
Thank you, Rick. Great to be here with you this morning. Thank you for taking the time for all of you, thank you for taking the time to learn more about the process of getting your California contractor's license. You can be a general contractor and build houses or do some remodeling jobs. You can be an engineering contractor and be involved in larger scale projects like building bridges, freeways, and skyscrapers. Or you can focus on a single specialty like being an electrical, plumbing, HVAC, landscaping, painter, or solar installer, just to name a few. From there, your entire future will open up and enable you to live your California dream. It does not matter if you want to be a one-person operation where you do all the work yourself, or have a small group of employees, or grow into a large company. The sky is the limit for you once that license is in hand. Getting your contractor's license may seem like a daunting task, but I'm confident that if you know what you're doing, you have the experience you need to qualify, you'll be able to demonstrate to us and get your license. In today's workshop, Rick and Anna are going to do their best to help you understand what you need to know to get your license. You'll also want to spend some time on the CSLB website. Check out the study guides and other information that will help you to succeed in this great industry. Always do your best. Once you get that license, always do your best. Try to, part of our job is to help consumers and contractors and do the very best we can to make sure that the industry moves forward. So always do your best and follow the law. The best of luck to all of you as you begin this exciting new chapter in your careers. And if there's ever anything we can do, we're just a phone call away. And Rick has done a great job at getting as much as he possibly can online for us. So you can ask those questions in times of doubt. So thank all of you for being here today and do your very best.
All right. Thanks very much, Johnny. What we're going to do now, we're going to start to get into some of the meat and potatoes. So as much as we'd like to look at Anna, and Johnny's going to go away here, but we're going to turn off our camera so you can focus on what's happening in as far as the slides. So please note, after a 3-month closure due to the COVID-19 health emergency, 7 of CSLB's 8 test centers have now reopened. We're working as quickly as we can to get through the backlog of exams that did build up during our 3-month closure. And during the closure, our staff did continue to process applications, so that part of the process is not missed a beat. So if you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and you want to participate, you need to go over to WebEx. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can watch it and that's fine, but you're not able to ask questions. If you do, go over to WebEx. If you're not sure how to get there, go to our website, cslb.cu.gov. There's a banner up at the top of the screen which you can click in to get there. And that's also where you can download the presentation to follow along. You should have also received it in your email reminder this morning. If not, if you can't find it there, go back to the banner on our homepage, download it. You can either follow along as we're going along, or you can go and watch it later, download it later. And we'll also have clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout the presentation. So you definitely want to download that and get direct links to that.
Okay, so over the next hour or so, we're going to be going through a lot of information. So don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive this video of the workshop and put it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch it again. To ask a question, use the Q&A feature. You should see the blue circle with the question mark at the bottom of your screen when you mouse over it. Clicking on the circle should open up a Q&A window where you can type your question. Make sure you send your question to all panelists. We tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you can use to get from your education and military service. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you hold off until actually sending us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop in case we answer it. We will go through all of your questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay, a disclaimer here. The information obtained during this webcast nor is it intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during this webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for a specific situation, you should contact an attorney who's familiar with California construction law, or review the 2020 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download that for free on the CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher, and you can see those links right at the bottom of this page. And when you download the presentation, you'll get direct links.
Okay, so here's a list of what we're going to be covering today. We will take you through the process for applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Then we're going to talk about why get a contractor's license, the minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, the type of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications. We will spend a lot of time giving you tips to fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We'll also be covering fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you get ready for the exam or exams you will need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued, things like a bond and insurance.
Okay, so let's get started. First, who needs a license? Here in California, the state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more, and that total includes both labor and materials. The law does not let you break down the project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need to have a contractor's license. So what's the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. You'll actually find that most CSLB laws all fall in that Business and Professions Code. We have a link to that code here on this page if you download the presentation. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the parts that we underline. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner building firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. So in other words, you don't just have to do the work in order to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for the construction job if that bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself why you should get a license. Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with a fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and/or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, it's important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies, which are also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every company, even a one-person operation, has to have a qualifier, somebody who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. So here's a short list of the minimum qualifications you'll need to get your license. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. You can qualify for the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify for the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journeyman or journeyperson, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade that you're applying for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. And we'll spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate the experience on your application in a few minutes. In some cases, a college education, a bachelor or associate's degree may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. Completing an apprenticeship program may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements as well. And some of your military service, if you've served, it may count as well. Towards the bottom of the screen, you can see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program, where you can learn more. The license qualifier must also pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is in a specific trade covered by the license. The specialty license, which we'll discuss later. Those licenses only require the qualifier to take the law and business exam.
As we mentioned, the qualifier must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both of the exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you're trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
Okay, the next thing you're going to need to do is to determine before applying for your license which type of entity your business is going to be. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 64% of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second is a corporation, where either of the current officers, designated as the responsible managing officer, or the responsible managing employee, may serve as the qualifier. About a third, 32% of our licensees are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or a responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. That's about 2% of our licensees. Finally is a limited liability company, or LLC. That's where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or a responsible managing employee may serve as a qualifier. It's just about 1.5% of the California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about the license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filing your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classification list at the bottom of the screen. First is Class A, or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final class is the C, or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include a C10, like electrical contractors, C20, HVAC contractors, C27, landscaping contractors, C33, plumbing contractors, C39, roofing contractors, C46, solar contractors, and C53, swimming pool contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under C61 classification. These include the C61 D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
Okay, next we're going to take a look at the 2 forms that you need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There you see the bonus link at the bottom of the page. Again, be sure to download the presentation to get those. And we'll give you a closer look at the different sections on these forms a little bit later. We'll talk about what you can find in that form, and then we'll actually run through the form. Okay, so now let's go ahead and break down the steps of the application process. First, you need to identify who is going to be the qualifier for your license. If you're an RME qualifier, that's a responsible managing employee, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Next, make sure that you complete the correct application. There are 2 options. The first is an application for the original contractor's license. This is the one that the majority of you will use. The second is the application for the original contractor's license examination waiver. You would only use this one if you're going to apply for somebody to get a waiver from having to take the required exams. The next step is determining your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Here are some important things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you're getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have a company name of John Smith Plumbing, Construction, Heating, and Drywall, because that goes well beyond what the classification allows you to do. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name registered with the California Secretary of State's office. And the name of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application if you're applying as a corporation or an LLC.
Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualification. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread for any missing information. Make sure you've provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date the application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your examination. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little later.
Next is a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for your criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespeople. If you're in California, you must submit your fingerprints electronically with what's called LiveScan. You can get an updated list of LiveScan locations around California broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here on the presentation, or you can just go to the Attorney General's website and search for LiveScan. If you're out of state, it's going to be tough for you to get your fingerprints. We'll just be real upfront with that. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those can take the FBI and Department of Justice anywhere between 3 and 6 months to process. So when things settle down with the COVID health emergency, if you're out of state right now, you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scans done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2013. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back for 3 years of the application date to 2019. That's unless the convictions are for violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal conviction.
Yeah, one correction there. I'm sorry, we had in our script that actually for the misdemeanors, we go back 3 years, so that's back to 2017. Okay, the next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It's how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs to have 4 years of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since the year 2010. That experience must be at no less than the journeyman level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner-builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified, as opposed to a trainee that can perform trade without supervision, or one that has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just going to be examples.
Okay, so this is what the chart's going to look like. So at the top of the chart, you're going to see the classification we're going to be giving you an example of, and the type of experience that you're trying to demonstrate. The first example is for a journey person experience. The overall theme that we'll keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. And note, the work experience form should be completed by your certifier. That's someone who has knowledge and observed your work experience for the classification that you're applying for.
Our first example here is for a Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work, something like this. Bob performed rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic like this: residential general building trades. For a 4-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, an unacceptable description would be something like this: residential general building trades. So the idea is to be very specific. For a supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Something unacceptable for this would be something like residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out of the state, military, on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a 4-person, or a supervising employee. Just a tip: be specific about your duties and your employment circumstances. Our next example is for a C27 landscaping contractor. First, for the experience at a journeyman level, the best type of description for your certifier could use would be: Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a 4-person would be something like this: Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscaping construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description again would be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be: as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicants supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would also be something like gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. Finally, for out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work for the military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and also your employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all information provided on at least 3% of the applications we receive. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide the additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide the information shown on these screens if requested by CSLB staff. On the upper right of the screen, you'll see a link to this publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your work experience if you've been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you are applying for a Class B general building contractor license and need to use your owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirement. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link there and view and print this publication. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you are asked to provide it in the future. Remember, you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. And also, just to reiterate, this is only going to be sent in if requested by CSLB staff. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify this experience.
Okay, one of the notes, CSLB does get more than 1,000 applications every month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. So their advice to us to tell you is do not try to get around the trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty. And also don't cut and paste from the examples that we gave you here. Believe me, they've seen it, and it's best just to put things in your own words and to really document and to explain what you've done. Okay, that's the content you need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign it and date it as well. You'd be surprised at how many people forget to do that, then it has to get sent back, and that delays you the whole process. And also, don't forget to include the all-important application fee. The amount is there on the application, then get it in the mail to CSLB.
Okay, now that we have gone through the information you'll need to include, here's a closer look at the application itself so you can see where it goes. Section 1 here is where you're going to list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and the entity that you are applying for, and that it's not misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that first the name that you provide in this section matches exactly the business name registered with the Secretary of State. In line 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. Here in section 2, you will select your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifiers information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the examinations. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you are the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100%. On line number 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity you have selected. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you are applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instruction. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you will want to make sure that all personnel that are listed with the Secretary of State are also listed in this section here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application in section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here. Section 6 is the qualifier education, apprenticeship, licensure, and the military section. You may be granted credit towards a 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not given on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, it doesn't mean you will necessarily be granted 2 years of credit toward the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it has to be translated before you send it in.
And if I can jump in here for just a second, what you also need to know about that is when you get the paperwork is have your university or college send you a sealed copy of that, then include that in the packet that it comes to CSLB. Do not have the school send that directly to CSLB because there may be some difficulty being able to identify what application that goes with. So it's better to have it sent to you as a sealed transcript, and then you include that with the packet that you send to CSLB.
Now we'll go to begin talking about the certification of work experience. Part 1. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here, you will list the information your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure to check the box in line 2. If you're applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, make sure to mark the box in line number 4. Part number 2 of the work experience certification will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the date in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you are working on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind that if you are working on a part-time basis, you're going to receive 50% of credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet that 4-year requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's Description of Classification booklet, available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. The next form we will be discussing is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience Form. This form only needs to be completed if you are applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line number 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. Here in boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project with you and what trades they performed. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
This is probably a good time to let you know is this workshop will be archived, so the video will be saved. It will be put up on our YouTube page. So that was a lot of information that Anna covered there. So that will be put on our YouTube page. Previous workshops we've done, which covered the same material, is already up there. So if you're anxious to watch this information again, feel free to do that, or wait till later today when this one gets archived. Okay, so now that you've got your application submitted, how do you check on the status of that application? Here are 2 resources. We'll send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your application. The second way is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for a section called the date being worked on. Now, we know that the date shown, if you know it was after the date that we likely received your paperwork, then the chance is that we are busy working on your application. So if that makes sense, if you look at it, you can see it on the right side of that screen there. That shows the current date. We update it on Monday of every week. It shows the date that we're working on. So if you think we would have received it prior to that date, that means that we're already working on your application. And as you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day, and we process them in the order that they're received. So be sure to take the extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you for you to correct it, then have to start the entire process again. Now, when your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for your examination and a study guide. You should get your study guide notice at least 3 weeks before your exam date. You should note that we're planning to add additional test sessions in the early evenings, and later we may actually hold them on test centers now that our test centers are reopened to help us catch up with the 2 months that we were closed. We have 8 test centers around the state. 7 of them are currently open. We would encourage you to take the exam at the center that's closest to you. The centers are in alphabetical order here: Berkeley, Fresno, Norwalk, Oxnard, Sacramento, San Bernardino, San Diego, and San Jose. The current one that's not open, the only one at this point, is in Berkeley. If you're an applicant whose first language is not English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads you the exam questions. Question 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination. Now, the translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You can't just show up on the day of your exam at the test center with somebody there to translate it. It must be approved in advance. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams, including in each study guide you'll find a list of the sections and the topics covered by the exam. We also include some sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and any recommended resources that you can use to prepare for your examination. These study guides are available online or on our website. Now, when our test centers are back up and running now, you will be able to get an exam date, and we ask you to please do not miss that exam date, because if you fail to appear at your exam, you'll have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee to reschedule. That fee can be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstances beyond your control.
We do have some new COVID-19 procedures in place for test centers. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering to be allowed into the test center. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video, what to expect on test day, that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
You will take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You can also see a space on each question where you can, if you'd like, submit a comment about the question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam, and be sure not to arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time that you've got to complete your exam. You'll also note that you will get your results at the end of the exam.
If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
Okay, so after you pass your exam, what happens next? First, you will need to pay a $200 fee for your initial license, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you will need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond and possibly some other bonds depending on which type of business entity you have. And you'll need to get in your required insurance policy. If you're going to have employees, you'll need to have workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance, and you can check our website for the amounts. Please note that your insurance company or your broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. And if you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you are going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you're going to have a salesperson working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more information on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, your license, it was issued today, June 26th. It will expire on June 26, 2022. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need to so that you don't forget. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to make sure you renew your license on time.
Here's a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we've got on file. So if you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to get it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, be sure to notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier. Okay, that is the presentation. We're going to spend time now answering your questions. I tried to answer a number of them as we were going through the presentation. So I'm going to go back on my list here. If you do have a question, feel free to use the Q&A feature. And I'm going to kind of go down the list. You should be able to see the list as well. So I'm going to run down and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can here. So stand by for just a moment. Okay, first one. Officers that are associated with licenses, how do they become a qualifier? Do they have to test in order to become a qualifier on a license? Short answer would be yes on that. The qualifier is the one that's responsible for taking one or both exams. Is a California license required if the carpenter is doing business locally? Again, where you need to have a license is for any home improvement job that is $500 or more in labor and materials. So it's based on the job. It doesn't matter if you're doing business locally or around the state. Okay, next question. Can you change the type of entity after you filed your application?
You would have to submit an application. It depends. You would have to submit a new application to change your entity. You wouldn't have to retest, but you would have to submit an application, submit new fees.
Okay, the next one is, can a qualifier be another contractor who is neither an employee or an owner?
So you would indicate who the qualifier is. And yes, we do have RMEs who are not necessarily the contractor, they're an employee. And you would indicate who the qualifier would be. It has to be either an employee or somebody who is listed on the license.
Okay, next one. And can you start off as a sole owner and then form an LLC?
You can start off as a sole owner. When you wanted to transfer it to an LLC, you would have to submit an application. You would not have to retest or prove your work experience. As long as your license was active and in good standing, you could go ahead and just apply for an LLC license.
And that's pretty common, not necessarily going to an LLC, since there's only like 1.5% of our licensees are, but it's very common for them to go to a sole ownership to a corporate. They certainly can go to an LLC as well. That's very common. Okay, next one is, can a B license holder take a prime contract on work other than framing and carpentry if he uses a licensed subcontractor if the job has less than 2 different trades?
Correct. So if a B license, let's say a B contractor is offered to paint a home, and it's just for one trade, just to paint a home. The B contractor could take that contract and then subcontract it out to somebody who is properly licensed, so they could find a painter and subcontract it to them. So yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. Next, if I'm applying as an LLC, I'm the only owner of the LLC, and I am the applier for the license. How should I apply? As an RME, an RMO, responsible managing manager, or responsible managing? Actually, it says responsible managing manager twice. So what would be the suggestion, if we have any, on how they should assign the ownership to themselves?
If you're the owner of the LLC, it wouldn't be an RME. If you were going to be the responsible managing officer, then you would select the RMO box. It depends on since you're the owner, you get to decide if you are an RMO. But yes, that would be most likely the scenario.
Okay, they're asking, next question is about experience if it was done out of country. How would they, what would they need to document out of country work experience?
So if your experience was out of country, we absolutely can consider that experience, as long as somebody who has knowledge that you have journeyman level experience is able to fill out your work certificate. We would definitely consider that experience.
The next question is similar, talking about having 3 years of job experience in their country and an architecture bachelor's degree. How would they demonstrate their job experience in that kind of a situation?
Sure. So the work certificate, as we mentioned, and if you need more than one person, one certifier to certify your work experience so that you can have a combination of the 4 years, that's not a problem. Just make several copies of the certification form, and one person can certify the work. Somebody will have to certify. Somebody will have to have knowledge that you had this experience out of the country, and as long as they are willing to communicate with us, fill out the form, possibly be contacted by CSLB, we would consider the experience.
Okay. Next, and maybe we talked a little bit about this in the presentation, Anna. Maybe you can expand a little bit. It's talking about how they apply the college degrees to their experience. They're saying, is it true that with a college degree, you would only need 1 year of experience? In other words, the degree would take 3 of your 4 years. Can you just talk about that, and especially how it works in the types of classes? And I'll let you go from there.
Sure. So the maximum that you can receive for college education is 3 years. But as we mentioned, it's not given on a year-to-year basis. So we wouldn't be able to guarantee that you would get the full 3 years. You would have to submit your transcripts, and once we look at the transcripts, we'll be able to determine if you would get the full 3 years. For example, if you had a 4-year college degree and you were taking construction management programs, and we were able to confirm that with your transcripts, you might be able to get the full 3 years, and then you would have to have an additional 12 months of field experience. However, let's say that you took 2 years of classes. It's very topic specific, so we have to see the transcripts. We have to see what the classes were that you took, and in that case we would give you some credit. But if you have any questions on what the credit is going to be, unfortunately we're not able to review your transcripts ahead of time. But what you can do is you can call the information. We have a call center that you can call, our 800 number, and ask to speak to a licensing supervisor, and they might be able to provide you more information.
Another way to get a hold of us too, in a good way, especially with the COVID, and we have so many people teleworking, is actually to send off an email to us. We have a licensing email called licensing@cslb.ca.gov. So you can send in your email questions. That's oftentimes a faster way to get through. Our call center is open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. So that's another way to get through as well. Next question says, I am a real estate developer and I want to get a license to take the charge of my own projects. Are there any schools which I can study the ins and outs of construction on the site, as I've never worked or built any structure with wood? There are licensing schools. They're not associated with CSLB. You don't have to go to a licensing school or use the services of a licensing school. They are there if you want to. I would be a little concerned about being able to document your experience if you actually have never built a structure with wood. That's kind of one of the main things in experience that a general contractor would need to have. So just go in with your eyes open there to be able to document what you can, but to know that there's going to need some documentation you're going to need to have, especially since this was also the person that was out of the country. Anna, do you have anything to add on that?
No, it sounds like he's looking for a class on construction. It's like Rick mentioned, we're not associated with any of the schools. Sometimes we're told that these schools are very helpful. So I would shop around, ask around to see if other contractors that you know of have found these schools to be helpful. There's none that we would recommend.
Okay, do the descriptions on the certification have to be written out personally, or have to be written out and approved by the previous employers?
Okay, so the person that of your choosing, who is going to be your certifier, would have to fill out section 2 of the work certificate. That's where they're going to list your experience. So the certifier would fill out section 2.
Okay, next question has to do with, we touched on this earlier about they've sent in their application and they want to change the business entity type. Is that a difficult and legal process after you've already, actually they're saying here after the license has been issued. So maybe, Anna, you can just touch on, they're asking if when the license gets issued under one entity, changing that. And we talked earlier about changing to an LLC, but if you can just repeat that briefly.
Sure. After the license has been issued, if you'd like to change entity, it's not a problem. You just have to submit an application and to have your license issued as an LLC.
Okay, next question has to do with the links that we have in the presentation. If you download the PDF, those links are all live. If you have any problems with them, fire off an email to us at social@cslb.ca.gov. But you should be able to open the links directly from the PDF. They're on our website homepage at at cslb.ca.gov. There's a green banner up at the top of the page, and one of them says download the presentation. You can do it there. Okay, next question. When applying for a B general building license, is it required that the work experience contains electrical experience?
When filing for the Class B, it's a little bit of everything. So you want to read the description of classification found in our classification booklet and see if you have the requirements to meet that. And anything that you read in the description of classification booklet, jobs, duties that you have performed, I would definitely include in your application.
Okay, next question talks about our exams. Can they be taken online or out of state? Do they have to come to test centers in California? You have to come to a test center in California right now. There may be some changes down the road, but for a number of reasons, and security being one of the main ones, they have to be done in person. So we do have 8 test centers around the state. We showed that on one of the slides earlier. The Berkeley Test Center is the only one that's not open right now. Okay, next, what do we do in the section if we are an old owner builder? So owner builder experience.
Okay, so we went over that briefly. There is a form that comes included with your application or that you can download on our website that you will need to fill out. The experience has to be verifiable through permits. Just fill out the form, fill out as much information as possible with the dates and the permit information, and then we will be in contact with you.
Okay, for another question about the exam, is it written or is it in class? It's online in the test centers. It's a touch screen on the computer system. Okay, next question. We are looking for a tile and granite license. Would that lie under the C54 ceramic and tile contractor?
Again, you can read our description of classifications in our classification booklet. You can click on the link and it will give you a description of all the duties that you can perform for each and every one of our licenses that we offer.
But that definitely would be a very good place to start. It's likely the C54, but you definitely want to read through and make sure. Next question. I'm an engineer and live in Canada and want to move to California. Can I apply for the license? To which I would first of all say, not if you're coming to Sacramento, it's going to be 103 or 104 here today. If you're going maybe somewhere a little cooler, that might be favorable. But welcome. Hopefully you will come to California. So I'll jump in unless you have something to add. Yes, you can apply for a license. We do, and you don't necessarily have to wait till you come to California. The thing that might be a holdup for you is the criminal background check. As we mentioned during the presentation, if you're in California, you can do it electronically. If you're outside the state, you have to do it the old-fashioned way on cards and hand stamp them and get those sent in. And that takes the Department of Justice and the FBI a lot longer to process them. So hopefully in someday in the future, there'll be a fix to that law and that requirement. So if you do want to, yes, you can apply now, but know that you either need to plan to come down to California to get your fingerprint done, or it's just going to take extra time to get that processed. Okay, can more than one person be recorded under the same license, or would it be best for all owners of a business entity to qualify for a license?
More than one person can be on the same license, yes. So multiple partners, you would let us know who the qualifier was going to be. The qualifier, remember, is a person with the experience and the person who's going to take the exam. But yes, more than one person can be on a license. Yeah,
and you run into some of our big companies here in the state, and there's literally probably a dozen people on the license, different officers, and especially we mentioned in the presentation for LLCs and corporations, everybody on that corporate list needs to be on the license. So yeah, there could be quite a few, but you definitely need to have one qualifier for each classification. And licenses can also have multiple classifications. The first license you would get would be under one, then you can add a classification later. So let's say that you may want to start off as an electrician, and then maybe later you want to add a solar license, or the other way around. You would need to have a qualifier for each of those. It potentially could be you, or you could have another qualifier for each different classification. Your call. Okay, next, we may not be able to answer it specifically. They're asking about water damage mitigation companies. Would a C61, D64 be sufficient? Again, you're going to want to read through that to look specific. We also do have a classifications deputy, so you can send an email to that licensing at cslb.ca.gov. And I think on our website too, we have a direct email to our classifications deputy that you may want to run that by them.
Yeah, if their email is classifications with an S at the end, classifications at cslb.ca.gov. ca.gov. If you provide them some information, let them know what type of work are you going to be doing, what is it that you're going to be building, repairing, altering, what type of materials are you going to be using, what is going to be included in your contract. Provide them basic information. They will respond to you. They'll let you know what the appropriate classification would be. It does take a little while for them to get back to you, especially now with the COVID-19. I would say give them, a good three weeks to respond to you, but they will respond. They'll send you an email.
If we have questions after the completion of an application, is there an in-person appointment available?
Actually, right now, our front counters are closed. I believe we're going to be opening them shortly. But right now, the best way for you, if you have any questions, is to send an email to that the licensing email address, or to call our information center.
Okay, yeah, July 1st will be the date we reopen the public counters. But that really, there's so many people teleworking right now. I think upwards of 80+% of our staff are teleworking. Actually, both Anna and I are right now teleworking. So it's much better to use that email. That thing does get monitored, and people are going through those every day. So that's the best way to try to get information. Okay, so this next person says they are studying architecture. How much experience potentially could they get for that? We've covered it, We've covered experience a bunch here, and a lot of it has to do with how much. Well, Anna, I'll let you talk. You're much better at this thing.
We will need to see what type of classes you've been taking. You want to go ahead and get a sealed transcript mailed to you, and then mail those in with your application. And then once a technician reviews it, they will let you know what your experience, how much experience they'll give you for your education.
Okay, next thing says we didn't go over the study guides, but the study guides are on the website. You will receive a copy of it when we give you your test date. So you look at that. I would suggest that you get a copy of the California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download a free PDF on our website. And towards the beginning of the presentation, we do have the link. You can go there and read through the first 150 pages or so, go through a lot of the basics that you'll need for the business and law exam, how to run a successful business, that kind of thing. So there's information out there you can find. Also on the study guides we have, those are all online as well as getting it sent to you. So you can just go to the website, type in the search key for study guides, and it'll take you to the page. Okay, next question is, what if you want to add employees later? Okay, here's how the law works, is when you get your license, you have to do one of two things. If you have no employees, you have to certify sign a form and certify it that you have no employees, therefore you don't need workers' comp insurance. If you do then get employees at a later date, then you need to have your broker send us the policy information, and they can do that online, that you've now got a workers' comp policy. Your license record will be changed to that. It'll have the date that it expires. And then the next year, if you're going to continue to have workers' comp insurance, they have to send that to us, or else license will go suspended if that information is not there and you have no license. So you have to have one of two things, either the exemption on file, or if you do have employees, you have to have the workers' comp information there for us. This one, I'm not sure, Anna, if you know, but they're asking what's the typical annual cost of a surety bond? I know there's a number of factors that go into effect on that.
It depends because there's different factors for everybody's. Is going to be different, but I would definitely shop around. There's different companies that offer it, and so we don't recommend one over the other, but any company, they're going to be provided. Sometimes they do run a credit check, so it's different for everybody, but I would shop around and see what's the best deal you can get.
Okay, next question is, do you teach a renewal class? Well, the renewal process, there's not, I don't think, a real reason to teach a class. You're going to get a renewal form from us about 60 days before your license expires. That's why you want to be sure, if you move at all or change your address of record, you're going to want to let us know. And actually, the law requires you to do that. But and periodically go check your license and look up on our site, make sure it's got the right address, because that's where it's going to go to. So if you use that form, you can actually now renew your licenses online. If you're a sole ownership and you with no RME, we're going to be expanding that in the near future. We're working on the systems right now. But if you end up being a sole ownership with no RME, it means you're your own qualifier. You'll be able to renew your license online. Hopefully in 2 years. Before that, we're going to have it expanded to the other classifications. If you do have another classification right now, you can go online and pay the fees, and then you just have to follow up by sending us the paperwork. So There's no continuing education requirements for your California license. Once you do have it, that's the only time you're going to have to test, as long as you don't let your license lapse for more than, I believe, 5 years. So not sure if you've got some specifics you think might be important for a renewal class. Feel free to send me another question or just send some information. But right now, I'm not real sure there'd be a reason for a renewal class. Okay, next one is, what is the proper use of trades for a C61 license, and how can limitations on a C61 be identified online? In other words, how can I verify exactly what a C61 is licensed to do? The first thing I would say is you go to our classifications page. So if you go to the website and even in the search bar, just type in classifications, you'll get a list, and you scroll down. All of them have links to the definitions that Anna talked about a little bit earlier. Click on C61, and you can see a whole different page of all of our D licenses that pop up there. You click on those, and you're going to get definitions of those as well.
Right.
Okay. Next one, educational experience is a Bachelor of Arts. How does that count towards an applicant's experience?
Again, it's going to be topic specific. I would send in a copy of your transcript with your application, and then once it's assigned to a technician, they'll let you know if they're able to give you any experience credit for your education.
Okay, the next question just asks about the qualifier certifying the experience. Is there a specific name, Anna, of that form that they would look for to use that?
And can you read the question again?
Sure, yeah, they're saying if a qualifier worked for a contractor in the same field that we're applying for, what's the name of the form that the contractor needs to fill out?
Okay, the work certification form. Work experience certification form. You can download it on our website, and it's also if you are unable to download it, if you call the information center, we can also mail you one. And you want to remember that you want to fill out one of those forms. For every certifier should fill out their own. So if you need to send in 3 or 4 different forms, that's not a problem. As long as you have 4 years of experience within the last 10 years, we can consider it.
Okay, next one is somebody who's already licensed. They want to apply for an LLC. Well, yeah, definitely. You're asking about the steps. There's some information on the website, but the first thing, obviously, you may want to look at an attorney. It's a more complicated, complex way to set up your business. So you want to, certainly not rely on Anna and I to guide you through the process, but you want to definitely have an attorney that can guide you through that process. The Secretary of State's office also has a lot of information on how to form an LLC. Next question is, our company recently hired an electrician who had previously qualified for another business entity as previous employer. Would he need to requalify and retest? The question I would have there is, are you hiring this person to serve as a qualifier from your license?
Right.
So let's go under that scenario, Anna. They're hiring somebody as an employee who is already licensed as a C10 electrician. What's the process they would need to do to make them their qualifier, assuming they
Right. So as long as that person has tested and the license is active and in good standing, yes, they could serve as a qualifier on your license. You would put them under let us know that they are going to be the qualifier. They're the ones with the experience. They are the ones who are going to be taking the examination. However, it does have to, the license that he is, if the license that he is on is in good standing, he took the examination and it's a valid license, then he would not have to retest.
Great. Next question is actually, you know what, I'm going to turn my camera on so I can show this to you. Next question has to do with studying for the business and law exam. Are there any study guides on our website? Yeah, we do have study guides on our website. This is the best thing for the studying for the business and law. I mentioned it earlier. This is the Contractors License Law and Reference Book. As you can see, it's a pretty thick book. It not only has the first 150 pages or so, deals a lot with businesses, the things you need to run a successful business, lots of information in there. The thing costs $30 or $40, but you can download it for free as a PDF on our website. Links are on there. Download the presentation. There's lots of good links. This is one of them. You'll see that on the first few slides. So go ahead and download that. That's a great resource for you, and it's going to help go a long way towards your business. Yeah. Okay, enough of me. Is there an application process different when you apply for a C-type license? No. The license we've talked about today can be for either the A, B, C, or if you're one of the C61 limited specialties, the same application you just designate on there. There may be some additional steps if it's an LLC. But it has, based on the classification, that's not going to be different. Okay. Is a California contractor's license required if I wish to pursue ground penetrating radar as a service for commercial remodels? I don't see that as a specialty license. And unless you know something about that, I would follow the same advice and get a hold of our classifications deputy. It's classifications at cslb.ca.gov. They can give you some more guidance on that. For sole ownership, do I have to register a business name before I apply for a contractor's license?
No, CSLB doesn't require that you register a business name. If you can select your business name and list it in section 1 of your application. We don't verify that another company is not using it. So if you want to go on our website, you can see if somebody else is already using that name, and then choose a different name if you'd like. But no, it's not a requirement that you register first.
Okay, now they're talking, next question, we've talked a little bit about this, about work experience. Again, in this case, it's in a combination of education and owner-builder experience. What do they put in the certifier section of the application?
If you're doing owner builder, it's a separate form. So you're going to want to fill out the owner builder B general building construction project experience form. In that form, you're going to list your information, the project information, the address. The most important information is going to be the permit number, and then also that way we can get the date. So just be as specific as possible. What duties did you perform? Things of that nature.
Yeah, and as far as who certifies that, it's people who actually have the knowledge of you doing that work and your abilities to do that work. Okay. If a qualifier is an employee, they leave the company, would you have to list a new qualifier? And if so, would they have to take the exam? The short answer is yes. Every license has to have a qualifier. So if this person is your qualifier and they leave the company, you've got, Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you've got 30 days or 60 days to get a new qualifier.
90 days.
I'm sorry?
You get 90 days to replace.
90 days, okay. So you get 90 days to replace that qualifier. So if you got to have a qualifier, there's no way around that. And if your new qualifier is not already licensed, they could, if you have another licensee who comes and then they become an employee, they can serve as your qualifier, and chances are they would be able to get that waiver to not have to take the exams. But there is a chance, but depending on situations, they would have to take the exam. As a potential flooring contractor specializing in hardwood and vinyl plank, would I be tested in carpet and sheet vinyl also? Well, you're looking at that. You're saying here, you're looking at the C15. Take a look at the study guide there. It talks about the different things that are covered. I really can't get into more depth than that. But the license is somewhat general, as it covers things that flooring contractors are expected to know. There's not just a hardwood vinyl plank contractor license. It includes all flooring. But take a look at that study guide again. Go to the website, do a search for study guides. You'll find it pretty quickly. Next question is, can a corporation become a standalone licensed entity? I think all of our entities are standalone entities. And there's, as we talked about in the presentation, there's sole ownerships and partnerships and corporations, LLCs. There's different ways you can classify your corporation, but they are entities and they are standalone entities. Next is, I have applied and submitted my application in late March. I've received correspondence from the CSLB via mail, but my application number does not register on the CSLB site. How can I check my status? The generic way is to check the processing times that we talked about. I believe we also have an opportunity for you to check without a license number, but I would suggest on there is to send, this is Trev, I would say send an email to our licensing at cslb.ca, include your app number and any other information, and they're going to be able to find it out for you, and then you can get a correspondence with them, and they'll be able to help you get that information. Is there an additional document for work experience? Are you saying because there isn't a lot, you can use additional pages if you need to as much as you need, because there really isn't a ton of room on that form. So use as much paper as you can. Just add it on after that page in the form when you send it in. Would you write that email address in the comments? Sorry, Paul, I'm not sure where. I'm probably missing something. What you're saying on that. So, Paul, if you got a question, says, would you write that email address in the complaints? If that's an email address to contact you, yeah, you definitely, any way that we would need to contact you, you definitely want to do that. Okay, next question is, I am planning to apply for a general B classification. You have to state a specific classification, journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, along with the general B. Giving this one to you, Anna.
Okay. So if you're applying for a general B classification, you no, you would only apply for the B. The B classification would cover you'd select. I'm sorry. You'd have to be prove the journey level experience. So you'd have to select somebody who had knowledge that you had journey level experience. But the general B classification covers all general B work, general construction work.
Okay, the next couple kind of deal with a very similar thing. And this one is somebody says they have 3 years experience working for a general contractor, but they weren't employed by them. What is the process, or does it matter if you actually were an employee?
So anybody can fill out your work experience. If you look at the work experience certification form, the different classifications of the person who can certify your experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be your employer. It could be a fellow employee. It could be, if you're part of a union, it could be somebody from a union representative. It could be a foreman. It could be a business associate. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your employer.
The next one is talking about the qualifier is self-employed, the requirements for documenting that. We've touched on that. There are ways, Anna, go ahead and go over those again if you could. If you're self-employed.
So if you're self-employed, you still have to have somebody certify your work experience. So you would still have to fill out the form. It could be somebody that you worked with. It could be a business associate. Maybe there's other contractors that you have worked with. Somebody needs to fill out your form. You're going to have to be able to prove that you've been doing this for 4 years. At least within the last 10 years. So once they fill out the form, if you are selected by CSLB for the additional background information, we would then contact you and ask you to submit some of those additional documentation to prove your work experience. And we kind of covered that a little bit, so you'll want to review that information. But you would only have to send that in if you were contacted by us and asked to submit additional documentation to prove your work experience. Other than that, it's the same process that everybody does. You're going to fill out the certification of work experience and have somebody certify 4 years in the last 10 years.
Okay, next question is another person from Canada looking to move to California, asking about their 24 years of construction experience. Again, the experience you'll need for a California license is at least 4 years of experience within the last 10. So it's great that you've got the 24. We can only go back 10 years, and as long as you've got at least 4 years of experience at least the journeyman level, that's the main thing you would need to document. Okay. Can I acquire a license under an existing LLC? I wanted to acquire a license for a company I currently work for. They're not currently licensed.
So you would have to register your LLC with the Secretary of State. So it sounds like you already did that. So you're a step ahead. Yes, you can submit your application. On the application, there is a section where you're going to list your LLC number. So go ahead and list that. The important thing there is everybody who is on your LLC with the Secretary of State, you're going to want to mirror that on your application. Everybody who's listed there needs to be listed on your application.
Okay, when changing entities, does a company need to get a new bond for that specific entity?
Yes, your new license would have to, if you're changing, let's say you were a sole owner and now you want to have a corporation, yes, you would have to provide bond information. You could cancel the sole owner if you're going to not use the sole owner license. You can inactivate it and cancel that bond, but yes, you would have to provide a new bond.
Okay, next question. Hello, my company was just created. Is there any time requirement to be accepted for the company to be in business? No, sometimes people are just creating those businesses or the company name, and that's fine. As Anna said, we don't go and check to see if there's other companies with those names. So yeah, you can create it. We don't look at any minimum time that you've been established as a company. Next one is what if you have more than one person on the license who has the qualification requirements? Terrific. Sounds like that'll be very helpful for your business, but you only need one qualifier. So as long as one person is the qualifier for that license, they have to have some control, and they're ultimately responsible. And if there's problems or if complaints filed, we're going to that qualifier. So if you have more than one qualifier in your ranks, that's great, but you only need to have one involved on the license. If you have multiple classifications in their license, do you also have to have multiple bonds? Anna.
Yes, you'll have to have a bond for each license that you're holding.
Next question, how can I apply for an individual license? Well, all the forms and all the information is on the website. If you happen to have joined us late, go back and watch this. We'll go through all the different processes here. We also have previous workshops online you can watch as well. Lots of information there. I'm planning to apply for a general B classification. Do I have to state what level I'm applying for, such as a journey person, foreperson, or supervising employee?
No. No, there's no, the general B will make you a licensed contractor. That's it. The journey person, foreperson, all of that we were covering is how did you gain your experience? We just want to make sure that you have journeyman level experience. If you gained it as a foreperson, that's great. You can include that. However, once you're a licensed contractor, you're a licensed contractor. It doesn't matter if in the past you were a journey person, a foreperson, supervisor, it doesn't matter.
The next question has to do with somebody planning to have a landscaping license in Contra Costa County. What's the first steps? Again, we just went through the application process. And for those of you maybe in the landscaping industry, there are, for the regular maintenance people, they're not required to be licensed. Where the license does kick in is when you start talking about installation, whether it be installing sod and installing retaining walls, sprinkler systems. If a job is over 500, that's when the law requirements kick in. So if you're looking at doing the larger landscape jobs or trees that are over 15 feet tall, that's where the license kicks in for that. The processes are all here. Okay, next one. If I own a business and have no experience and do not plan on working in the field, but I have a partner that has the qualifying experience, can my name be on the license as well?
Yes. Yes. He would be the qualifier, and then you would be on the license as well. You can have as many people as you'd like on your license.
Okay, next question talks about fees, specifically asking for a C8 license. Fees are all the same across the board. You're going to have a fee for the exams, and then you will have a fee for your original license, which is good for the 2 years. Anna, if you probably have those committed to memory as far as the license fees.
The license fees, yeah. Let me look at it actually. It just recently changed. So when you first apply, when you send in your application, you're going to want to go ahead and send in $330. That's your application processing fee. Once you've gone through the process, you've passed your examinations, you're ready to get your license issued to you, you're going to send in another $200. So in total, it will be $530 for your license. $300 initially when you send in your app, and then $200 when we're ready to issue it.
Okay, next question is asking about study guides in Spanish that they only see them in English. Yeah, right now that they are only in English, but that's actually probably not a bad idea for us to maybe invest in getting things translated. I will talk about the translators again. Is if you do want to have a translator for your exam, that's acceptable. You would just need to apply. Let CSLB know that beforehand. Don't just show up with a translator on the day of the exam, and we can take care of that. You can have a translator there who can read the questions and translate them into whatever language that you need to be translated to. Next question is what if the certifier has recently passed away? This, I guess, would be the certifier for the experience. And I'll just say that that you need to find another certifier. Obviously, that it doesn't necessarily have to be the boss. It could be somebody you've worked with, but I would say look for somebody else who can document that. Okay, can we use the jobs that did not require a permit, and if so, how do we document it?
If you're looking for the owner builder experience, no, you would have to have a permit. That's the only way that we would be able to document, that we would be able to verify. If you're talking about jobs that you've done in the past that didn't require a permit that you're trying to use for work experience, yes, we would be able to look at that. You would have the person, somebody that of your choosing has to be your certifier, and they could fill out the certification of work experience.
Next question is, I didn't know people were going to quiz us on classification stuff so much, but next, in order to service and repair fire alarm systems, what type of license? I believe that's a C16. You want to check on that. Go to the classifications page, go to the website, in the search bar, type classifications in. We have all the lists there. I think it's C16, but you'll definitely want to check and make sure that's the correct one for you. Is the business and law exam closed book? Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. The only one that's open, that's part of the license, is the asbestos exam, which is an open book test. Does a person that is certifying need to have a contractor's license? No, they don't need to have a contractor's license. When taking the exam, I'm receiving the study guide for my specific trade, C27, which is landscaping, as well as the general contractors. Could you recommend a good study guide for the C27? All we can recommend is the study guide that we have out there. So our website, search study guides, look for the C27. That would be the only thing that we can recommend. Also the law book, the two things. There are schools out there if you want to, that is you're entirely, that's fine, but you don't have to, but it is a resource there if you want to use it. Okay, to apply for a LLC license, do I need to register first with the LLC with the Secretary of State? Yes, and you need to make sure that everybody is on one form is on the other. That does get checked. So yes, you do want to get everything taken care of at the Secretary of State first. Are you required to take classes before testing? No. The study materials of the book references to take this. Yeah, if you got the experience, I don't know if you've